Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy Brandonswims, and today, like I promised, we're going to be talking about The Substance. The Substance is the second movie by French director Coralie Fargaet, I believe is how her name is pronounced. This movie stars Demi Moore as Elizabeth Sparkles and Margaret Qualley as the younger, prettier, better version of Elizabeth named Sue. This movie is a phenomenal body horror film, and you would be asking yourself, hey Brandon, what's body horror? I'm so glad you asked. Body horror is a film in which the character's body goes under a transformation, whether it be through decay or destruction or degeneration of part of their body. This body horror is really, really well done, and we're going to get into depth of why I really like it and why I think it's bringing back the genre of body horror. There's been a lot of body horror over the years. Some that would be mentionable would be something like Eraserhead, where you see the character's body go through transformations and basically become that creepy worm creature. This body horror starts off because in this movie, Demi Moore's character Elizabeth is turning 50, and her douchebag boss, who's played by a douchebag himself, Dennis Quaid, fires her because people don't want to see a 50-year-old dance anymore. They want to see the young, hot women dance. So in this, amid her distress, she gets an offer from this laboratory to activate the better version of her. And this is the substance. So essentially, there are some incredibly strict guidelines that happen when you take this. They give you like a set of rules that are laid out to help you so you don't lose control and you don't end up abusing the substance. One of the biggest rules that they have is to remember that your body and your better version are the same person, and you need to take care of them. When it's time to switch back, you need to switch back. Otherwise, you will face consequences. However, it wouldn't be a very good movie if Demi Moore's character just obeyed the rules, because we wouldn't have our body horror film. So essentially, Elizabeth loses control and starts this kind of terrifying transformation of her body where you start to see parts of her decay. She starts to age rapidly, and it gets really, really crazy. As time goes on, she ends up spending more time as Sue because she feels more seen as Sue. Sue has the show that Elizabeth had. Sue's in the limelight, and Demi Moore's character is basically able to live vicariously through her. However, through doing this, she ends up becoming incredibly jealous of Sue because when she transforms back into herself, into her actual body, she ends up seeing interviews and different things where Sue is there talking about, out with the old and with the new, and they make a comparison to Jurassic Park, referring to Sue being 50 years old as Jurassic Park. She's old as the dinosaurs, essentially. So she starts to envy Sue in these times, and you really see her lose control when she's in this kitchen, and she's cooking, and she's just cooking and cooking and cooking and eating and eating and eating. She's lost complete control of herself, and she can't get a grip back on it because when she spends all this time as Sue, everything is so great, but when she switches back, she's not seen. She doesn't feel the same. She's been pushed out of the limelight. She basically does not matter anymore to people. As this goes on, I had a realization that this is basically how body dysmorphia works. Body dysmorphia has become kind of normalized, and the reason it's become normalized is how social media operates. I think that social media operates in a way where we see other people, we see what they're doing. They're skinnier, they're prettier, they're buffer, etc. And we want to be more like that. But what we don't realize in this process is as we want to be more like that person, we end up losing ourselves. And I think this film does a really good job of kind of going through the process of that. Because like I said, Demi's been fired because she's 50 years old. She's not relevant anymore. And so as she's Sue's this young, hot woman who basically can get anything she wants handed to her. And so Sue is doing X, Y, and Z that Elizabeth may be used to do. And so she's living vicariously through her, but she starts to kind of lose her way with that because she's jealous. And so rather than treating the substance like she's supposed to, she ends up spending more time as Sue because life is better when she's Sue, because Sue is prettier, Sue is younger, etc. I think the thing that's really interesting for me in this is I think the body dysmorphia is kind of become a norm, and it's really sad to see. I think that often I can look back on a couple different events that have happened in society One of them being when Tyra Banks shamed a size 4 woman on America's Next Top Model, and the other being when Jessica Simpson gained a little bit of weight. The tabloids basically destroyed her and started to call her fat, and she was not fat at all. She'd gained a little bit of weight, but I think that that is the thing that ultimately leads to body dysmorphia and how people feel the way that they do. And I think this film does a really good job of depicting how people with body dysmorphia feel and what it looks like to them. I think that Elizabeth's transformation over time as she loses control and is not switching back from Sue really goes to show that, because like I said, she's so jealous of Sue that she's not taking care of herself. She's lost who she is. So she basically starts to become this, for lack of a better word, she becomes a monstrosity. She legitimately becomes this monster. By the end of the film, you really cannot even tell that it's Demi Moore. And I think that's so symbolic of how we treat body dysmorphia, is that we want to be so much like somebody else that we lose who we are and we start to become this different person. And people will see that and they won't recognize us, or they won't understand maybe what we're going through, etc. And I think that this film, like I said, just it depicts it so well. And I think that often people that have body dysmorphia don't often feel seen or heard, because it's one of those things that it's typically internalized, and it's not really talked about a lot that I know of. So I think this film is able to explore that in a way that's not offensive to people that struggle with body dysmorphia, but it allows them to identify with a character on screen, which I always think is so important. I think, like I touched on with A Real Pain, it gives people a character to look on screen and be like, hey, I know how that feels. I know what that character's feeling. And I think that for movies, often you don't get that. And so I think for people to be able to feel that, or people to be able to look at that and be like, hey, I felt that way, is really, really cool, because it allows them to connect with your movie on a more deep level than maybe the typical consumer would. So I really like that aspect, but another aspect that I like of the film, rather than it talking about something that I think is so crucially important societally right now, is that one of my favorite films of all time, horror genre related, is The Shining. This movie has a lot of one-to-one parallel shots of The Shining. There was a picture that I saw the other day, and it basically had The Shining on one side and The Substance on the other, and they were genuinely, they were one-to-one ratios of like the exact same shot. And I think it's really cool because you could tell that Coralie was inspired by that, and it's really cool how movies can pay homage to movies that came before them that inspired them to become a director, to become an actor, etc. And I really liked that, because The Shining is one of the best movies of all time for me. And so this, having that one-to-one parallel, allowed me to appreciate it just a little bit more. One thing that I think this movie does deserve, I do think it deserves every Oscar that it's up for, even the Best Picture, which it's up against Dune 2, so I don't think it's going to win, but I do think that it should win, in my humble opinion. I think this movie is so solid that it deserves everything it's up for. So this movie's up for 5 Oscars, and I do think it deserves every single one of those. It's up for Best Original Screenplay, Best Picture, Best Hair and Makeup, Best Actress for Demi Moore, and Best Director for Coralie. Where I think it fell short, though, not necessarily the movie itself, but where the Academy fell short, is I think Margaret Qualley should be up for an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. The way that they are able to channel this back and forth between Demi Moore's character and Margaret Qualley's character, Sue and Elizabeth, is incredible. The parallels when she becomes this younger, better version of her. If you would have told me that Margaret Qualley was Demi Moore's daughter, at a certain point, I could have looked at you during this film and I would have believed you. The casting is so well done that the younger version of her looks like it genuinely could be a younger version of her. And I think that that is something that you have to nail in the type of film that The Substance is, and I think that they did it very, very well. I would love to see what Coralie has up her sleeve next. I've seen both of the films that she's released up to this point. I've seen Revenge, that came out in 2017, and I've now seen The Substance, that came out in 2024. Revenge, I watched after I saw The Substance, and I think that it is a great directorial debut. It's about this girl who basically is left to die by these 3 men, and she is getting her revenge against them and trying to track them down and kill them because they left her for dead after a series of events happened. I highly recommend you check that out if you like The Substance, or if you haven't seen The Substance, check them both out. I could not recommend them enough. I think that'll do it for this review on The Substance. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you taking time out of your day to watch this video. I think the video that we're going to try to cover next is going to be a companion that has Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, Dennis Quaid's son, in it. It's about this sex robot companion, essentially, and she basically becomes sentient and is trying to exact her revenge based upon how she was treated by Jack Quaid's character. So I need to see it, hoping to see it in the next week or so that we can cover it on our next review. Until next time, guys, be sure to tell somebody you love them, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.